When you've lived alone long enough, you start hearing strange sounds. The ticking of the clock in the dead of night grows louder, as though it's counting down to something. The wind howling outside the window morphs into whispers you dare not try to understand. I'm not sure when it began. Perhaps it was the day I moved to this small, rain-drenched town, where the rain never stops, and people pass each other like shadows. I work at the post office, a small building at the edge of town. Every day, I sort letters, process parcels, and stare at the abandoned house across the street, a place the whole town avoids mentioning. They say the house once belonged to a wealthy couple, but after some tragedy, it was left behind, cold and desolate. I never paid much attention to those stories, not until the first letter arrived. The letter left me stunned, a faded, yellowed piece of paper with neat handwriting. To Margaret, the one I'll love forever. The ink had faded, but the emotions in the letter felt alive, as if it had been written only yesterday. It spoke of deep longing and an aching desire to reunite with Margaret, the woman who had left the writer, Thomas. The letter bore no return address. No one knew where it had come from. But I noticed something peculiar. The wax seal had a rose emblem, the same symbol etched on the window of the abandoned house across the street. I don't know what I was thinking when I decided to write back. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was how the words in the letter touched a part of me I'd tried to bury after my last breakup. I wrote a simple reply, placed it at the door of the abandoned house, and waited. The response came faster than I expected. A week later, another letter arrived. It was from Thomas, filled with raw emotion and sorrow. But what chilled me to the bone was that Thomas mentioned things no one could possibly know about me. The recurring dream I had of a misty forest, my fear of abandonment, and even the reason I moved to this town. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence. But then, strange things began happening. The mirror in my house cracked for no reason. Footsteps echoed in the hallway every night, even though I lived alone. And the abandoned house seemed to watch me every time I walked past. I couldn't stop myself. I wrote more letters, asking Thomas about his life. He wrote back, confessing his undying love for Margaret, a love so intense he promised to wait for her forever. According to him, Margaret had left him for someone else, and he had died in agony, unable to bear the betrayal. I felt sorry for Thomas, but at the same time, something didn't feel right. My dreams grew more vivid. I dreamed of a man with empty eyes calling my name in the darkness. These dreams left me waking up cold, as though I had just escaped from somewhere I didn't belong. Then I entered the house. The rotting wooden door creaked open. Inside, it was eerily silent and bone-chillingly cold. I don't know why I dared to go in, but something about it drew me upstairs. The locked room opened, revealing letters that had never been sent. These weren't Thomas's letters, they were Margaret's. They told a different story. She hadn't abandoned Thomas. In a fit of blind jealousy, he had killed Margaret when she tried to leave him. I stepped back, horrified, but when I turned around, Thomas was there. His eyes no longer held the warmth of his letters. They were empty, like an abyss. "Margaret," he whispered, "you've come back." He thought I was Margaret. He wouldn't listen to my explanations. He believed I had returned to him, to make amends for the pain I'd caused him. I realized what I had to do to help him find peace. When I read Margaret's final letters aloud, the truth poured out like a flood. Thomas screamed in rage, but just before he vanished, he turned to look at me. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice filled with regret, before he disappeared forever. But I didn't leave unscathed. A part of me was taken with him. I still work at the post office, still sort letters and parcels, but people say I've changed. They say my eyes now carry a sadness no one can understand. I wrote one last letter, addressed to myself. Sometimes loving someone too much can make you lose yourself. But if I had to choose again, I'd still do it, because at least I saved a soul, even if I lost a part of my own. The abandoned house still stands, shrouded in mist. And I know a part of me will remain in it forever. I brought Lily to this hotel, hoping it could save us. Nestled in the middle of a mist-covered marsh, it bore an air of isolation that I thought might offer us a chance to escape the chaos of our lives. The building emerged through the dense white fog like a phantom. Cold stone walls, tall, dusty windows and a slanted roof cloaked in moss. But I paid no attention to these details. All I cared about was Lily. She was slipping away from me, and this might be our last chance to fix things. The moment we stepped inside, I noticed the change in Lily's eyes. She stared at the endless hallways, dim yellow lights illuminating damp, moldy walls, and her hand gripped mine tightly. "It'll be fine," I murmured, more to reassure myself than her. But the chilling atmosphere of the place sent shivers down my spine. That first night, Lily began hearing the song. I heard nothing, but she told me it came from the marsh. A soft, mesmerizing melody, gentle yet haunting, like the whispers of the wind. I dismissed it as a dream, but Lily didn't. Night after night, the song called to her. She described seeing a woman in a white dress, standing by the edge of the marsh, her long black hair cascading down, her deep eyes seeming to pierce into Lily's soul. I tried to convince Lily it was her imagination, that this place's eerie isolation was playing tricks on her mind. But she wouldn't listen. She insisted the woman was calling to her, that she couldn't resist the pull to find out more. I began to see Lily change. Her skin grew pale, her eyes lost their familiar spark, and she became increasingly distant. Each night she snuck out, following the song, and every time she returned she seemed emptier, like a piece of her had been left behind in the marsh. Then one night she didn't come back. Desperate, I ran into the freezing mist, shouting her name across the still, eerie marshland. Under the pale moonlight, I saw her standing in the water, facing a woman in a white dress. I didn't know where this woman had come from, but I could sense something profoundly wrong. She wasn't human. She smiled at Lily, a sad, regal smile, as if welcoming a long-lost friend. I ran toward them, shouting, but Lily didn't turn around. Instead, she walked toward the woman, one step at a time, as if hypnotized. And then I saw the terrible truth. They weren't two separate people. Their forms began to merge, and memories hit me like a wave. Lily wasn't the victim. She was the woman in the white dress. Her soul, trapped in this place from a past life, had been waiting to return. She had ended her life here in anguish after a betrayal, and now she had come back to complete the cycle. I lunged forward, trying to pull her back, but she turned to me, her eyes filled with compassion and sorrow. "Andrew," she whispered, her voice now entwined with the haunting melody of the other woman. "I'm sorry. This is where I belong. I can't go with you." I screamed, trying to pull her from the marsh's grasp, but all I could do was watch as Lily faded, dissolving into the mist like morning dew under the sun. The next morning, I woke by the edge of the marsh, cold and empty. Lily was gone. All that remained were faint footprints in the soft mud leading straight into the water. The fog lingered, as though determined to erase every trace of her. I returned to the hotel, exhausted. The silence inside was deafening. No voices, no staff, nothing. The once busy hallways now felt abandoned, as if the hotel had been deserted for years. On the reception desk, however, one thing caught my eye. A small wooden box with my name engraved neatly on the lid. Inside was an old note, the handwriting shaky but clear. "Andrew, don't look for me. Don't come back. You belong to your world, and I belong to this one. I will always love you, whether now or in our dreams. Live well and forget me. I'm sorry. I will forever be your Lily." Beneath the note lay a silver ring, the one I had given Lily when I first proposed. It was cold, so cold it felt as if the frost of the marsh had seeped into my palm. I left the hotel in silence. This time, I didn't look back. The town remained the same, but I knew I could never return. Yet, in the nights that followed, I began to dream of her, not as the Lily I remembered, vibrant and alive, but as a faint silhouette in the marsh. Her voice echoed through the mist, a gentle yet sorrowful song, calling my name like a final invitation. I told myself I wouldn't go back, that I couldn't let what had happened destroy the rest of my life. But deep down, I knew I would never find peace. Each dream, each faint melody in my mind, pulled me closer to the marsh. One day, I know I will return, not to save her because she no longer belongs to my world, but to be with her, where that song will echo forever, mingling pain and love into an unending melody.